Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Coach Eric, and I'm sitting here on a beautiful October morning, sipping on some coffee, and I just finished some personal development reading. This thing's called A Walk in the Woods. This isn't your typical quote unquote personal development book, but I took some things from this book. I wanted to share it with you. So, A Walk in the Woods is about these two guys that just decided that they were going to walk the Appalachian Trail. Well, the section of the book that I got to is where they made it to Maine. They started in South Carolina and they made it to Maine. And this particular section of Maine was like one of the most difficult um, parts of the Appalachian Trail. And they're going along, and all of a sudden the trail just stopped in the embankment of this river. And they're thinking, okay, well, obviously something must be wrong because trails don't go into rivers, they just maybe little streams, but not big rivers like that. So they backtracked, and they didn't find any alternate routes. They came back to the same spot, tried to go around it, nothing. They couldn't find it, and then finally they said, you know what? I guess this is it. And actually, they confirmed it because they looked across the river and they could see the trailhead. And a trailhead is basically a marker that you put on trees, on trails to say, yeah, this is the trail that you're supposed to be on, so you don't get lost. So that was confirmation. They were like, yeah, this is what we got to do. And they had a choice. They could go back, which would have been that's not even an option. So they said, you've got to go through it, even though they weren't prepared for it. So they took off all of their clothes. They were stripped down to their boxers, and they've got their backpacks and whatnot. And they decide to cross, and they cross in bare feet. I don't understand why they did that. I guess they didn't want to get their shoes wet, so they cross in their bare feet. And you got these logs that are logs and stones, irregularly shaped stones that are just covered in moss. So inevitably, what happened? They fell on their ass in the middle of the river, right? Soaking wet. And not only did they fall once, they fell several times. But you know what? They got up each time and they cursed a little bit, and it wasn't a happy experience, but they kept moving forward to the other end of the embankment. Now, when they reached the other side, the interesting thing happened is that they met up with these other two hikers, and then they were like, "Oh, I see you got a little wet there," and they were like, "Yeah, smartass, we did." And they watched these other two hikers. Remember, these hikers are coming from the opposing end. And before these hikers crossed the river, they were like, well, you know what? This is the first of many, many rivers that you're going to have to cross during this trail. And they watched these other two hikers. They didn't take off any of their clothes. They kept the shoes on. They took their backpacks, put it over their head, walked straight through the same river that these guys did, and not once did they fall on their ass. So I took a lot from that. I'm thinking, you know what? Think about the journey that you're on right now. Well, I was thinking about like just some of the life journeys that I've been on, and I mean, there have been times when I'm just going along doing my own thing, and then boom, I run into this my own river, where my trail seemingly stops, and there's no way around it. I got to get through that, and sometimes you try to be so perfect, and sometimes sometimes you try to avoid it, sometimes you try to go around it, or even when you understand that you've got to get through this, you go through it, but you beat yourself up. Sometimes I just beat myself up through the process because it's not perfect. Yeah, I fall on my ass sometimes, but that to me just sometimes that could just make it worse if I just don't allow myself the freedom to say it's okay not to be perfect, and it's okay that you're going through what you're going through right now, you know, and another thing that I took from that is that and that I think if I read a book earlier, I forgot the name of it. Crap. Sorry, I can't think of the name of it, but they were talking about the relationship between success and failure. And a lot of times we look at it like this, like here's where you are. Okay, so you're right here, right, and you're right here. Excuse me, you're right here. Here is failure, and here is success. Now, what do you want to do? You want to go over here towards success and avoid failure. Well, in this book, they're saying, well, actually, it's like this. Here is where you are. Here is failure, and here's success. You got to get through that failure in order to realize your success. A lot of success is stands on the shoulders of countless failure. And when those guys crossed that river and didn't even get wet, I think it was because of the fact that they crossed many rivers before, and then they reflected back, and they learned from each experience, each river that they had to cross. And they took a little bit from that, and and forgave and allowed themselves to make those mistakes, you know, along the way, and they got a little better each and every time. How empowering is that? You know, it's okay to fail. Sometimes we've got to embrace failure. Sometimes to say, you know what, yep, I'm gonna cross this river. It's not gonna be perfect. I'm gonna fall on my ass, and I might get a little bit wet, but that's okay. You know, because every time I fall down, not only am I going to get back up, I'm going to reflect and think about, okay, well, you know, what are some of the things that I may be able to do better, if any at all, you know, and, you know, get up with a positive mind, a positive attitude, knowing that that trailhead, you never keep your eyes off of that trailhead on the opposite end of that river that you're crossing. All right, guys, I'm getting all deep on you, but I love this book, and it just really, you know, caused me to think about those things. So much love to you in whatever river that you're crossing right now. Keep your eyes on that trailhead, and allow yourself and forgive yourself for any for you know for every time you fall down. You know, just forgive yourself, and then just say, you know what, that's life. You don't have to be perfect. All right, guys, much love. Talk to you later.